Well, hello and welcome to the second webinar of today on addressing today's challenges for home learning. My name is Stefan Alsebrook. I am joined today by my colleagues, Lucy Evans, who looks after the customer success team, Claire Maybe, who looks after our training team, and Graham Quince, who looks after the architectural implementation of Frog in our schools. A bit of housekeeping before we start, and this is around communication. You'll see down the right-hand side of your screen that there's a chat channel and a questions channel. Feel free to use the chat channel to talk informally amongst yourselves as the presentation is going on. It's what it's there for, and please do network in the way that the technology intends. The questions channel, if you have any questions to put to the team, we'll be monitoring that throughout the duration of the presentation. So do please put any questions there, and we will address them as best we can. So obviously COVID has changed a lot of things, and some common platforms have been well utilised on the back of it to help schools through lockdown. In particular, Teams, Zoom and Google Hangouts have been used really well for teachers to deliver teaching, whole class teaching and one-to-one teaching, and also to share documents. What's become very evident to us, and what today is all about, is that these platforms, while they're fantastic in what they do leave some gaps, and we have a product called HomeLearning which addresses these gaps. The gaps we consistently hear are around parental inclusion, school transparency, and feedback and formative assessment, the kind of iterative conversations that teachers have with their students in the class, allowing them to deliver more personalised learning. Our home learning platform is a powerful, easy and straightforward way to fill these gaps. Very quick and easy to implement and very cost effective. And what we're going to do over the next half hour or so is show you how it works, what you can expect to get from it, and what this thing is all about. So I'm going to, without further ado, hand over to my colleagues Lucy and Graham to take you through the platform.
Lovely, thank you, Stefan, and thank you for that great introduction. So I think there's been several things that myself and Graham have learnt through the last few months, really, and the feedback that the schools have been giving us. Now, Graham and I work on the customer team, so we support schools across the globe, as Stefan said, but there's been some key things and some key areas that schools have been particularly focusing on at this point in time. So, Graham, would you mind just pressing on to the next slide? Thank you. So, really, I suppose it's since March, the world has changed, as we all know. What have we learned, and what have schools been asking us particularly for, and some of the solutions that they've asked us to put in place? So really, remote learning became the core of teaching and learning. It's not necessarily the case now. It's an approach of both. But in early days, it was an immediate need for remote learning, and a lot of schools just went along the cover route. The expectation was that parents became, in some ways, the teachers, because they were guiding their children through the school day. It was all very quick. So structuring the school day and giving a clear timetable of remote learning was actually quite complex due to things like shared devices across the household, and parents being at home as well. And also, in some cases, I know out in some of the countries that we work in Asia, the internet access was also a bit of a barrier. Parents asking for analytics and feedback on their child's work and home working. Where do I find that? How's my child doing? And how can I help address some of those gaps in attainment? And we all saw that around exam results, around exam time. So we need to make sure that the children are in a good place, ready for this spring. So also engaging with parents. Parents Do they know whether their child is submitting work? Do they know how their child is doing? And how are we getting that feedback to them? They need to see some kind of value from us. And also identifying some of those vulnerable children. And by vulnerable children, I mean those children that may need a little bit of extra support. So how do I see those patterns and how do I act on them really as a teacher? And also, as Stefan mentioned, about blended learning and perhaps what we're seeing now is a bit of an unpredictable future. I think we've all found that we've raised our game with technologies, but also we have to address every aspect of technology and every aspect of our teachers, our students, and our parents' technical ability. So making sure that we have something that fits everyone. So that said, what I'd like to do is introduce you to Graham. Graham will now take you through a live demo of the Frog home learning platform. Now, Frog, you may have heard of us. We're much more than just a learning platform, but what we want to do is show you what we have created for the here and now, which is Frog home learning. Hi, Graham.
Hi, Lucy. Hi, and hi, Stefan, for earlier as well, and hello to everybody else. As Lucy says, I'm going to give you a tour of this platform. I think it's really important, and I want to emphasize our schools over the last 20 years of working with us have helped design this product. They've told us what they needed to do, and we've presented it for them in the way. So a lot of the ideas I'm going to be presenting to you have come directly from people using it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm logged in here, and the platform you're looking at right now is the staff view. This is what your teacher would see. So immediately, the first thing that we've got on here is to improve communication. We've got a staff notice board. We've also got a student notice board and a parent one. Now, what this means is that this is a great way of cutting down on emails because, if you just need to put out a generic message to all colleagues, it's one less thing to go in their inbox and instead appears when they log in. When students and parents log in, they see a similar but different interface. So they get only their notice boards, but staff can go in and very quickly click on the new notice and add in some information. They can upload a picture, they can add links off to different resources and whatever they need to do. Now, because we'll be doing this, and since March, we've learned that, we'll be doing some remote training if you were to take this on, but we also make sure that we provide you with these handy video guides throughout the platform. So you don't ever need to remember back to that training. If you're stuck struggling for something, there are links directly off to our community site with video guides tailored for that space that you're looking at right there and then. That's what we've tried to do. We've tried to make it so that it's very, very easy for you to get started and get using the system. Speaking of which, the core of the system is setting a piece of homework, and to do that I can click on the button at the top and open a new assignment, and this wizard pops up. Now, what I often say to schools when I'm demonstrating this is I can set a piece of homework in 30 seconds. Obviously, I can go into a lot more depth, and I'll be showing you a bit of both. But really, all I need to do when I'm starting is if I want to set a task for the students to complete, all they have to do is fill out this page here. So I can go in and I'm going to set a piece of homework about Oxbow Lakes, which is obviously a geography subject. Now, the next box here, the assignment instructions, is probably the most important bit, especially when you're rolling this out. And you may well have colleagues who are already using a third-party system, such as, I don't know, MathsWatch or Caboodle or something like that. So you've got colleagues who are already quite comfortable setting work online, and they may not see the benefit of switching over. Well, the benefit isn't for them. The benefit is for the students and their parents to know that they've got one place to go to see all of their homework. And so for those colleagues of yours who are using MathsWatch or Caboodle, they can go on here and treat Frog as a homework notification tool and continue using that other product that they're using. But for the children, they go and they know that all of their homework is just in here. So I can fill out some information, and this might be something typical. It might be work. And I've got the other tools of a rich textbook, so I can add in bullet points. And by the way, being a standard browser, let me get rid of some extra words. I've got it will pick up typing errors for me, although not the one I wanted, but I can still correct that easily enough because it will flash up. So I can fill in, and as I said, with being rich text, I can make this much larger, much easier to read, especially if I'm displaying this. Now, the next stage, and this was really interesting what happened at the start of lockdown in the UK, in that we found that schools were telling us how they were using the system, and they weren't just setting work to be handed in on any date and being made available from as soon as the point of creation. Instead, what those schools were doing is using the assignment system to create an online timetable for the students. So they weren't making work available to appear until the day they wanted it to. And this became really important for them because they were able to replicate that in-school environment, but doing so online. Because quite a lot of our students in schools were having to have shared computers. It might even be that they weren't able to do their schoolwork until their parents had finished their work on the family computer, or it might even have been a Wi-Fi issue. So by doing it this way and saying this homework for geography is what you're going to be doing next Thursday, and not appearing till then, the students know that they could work through that work on the Thursday when they were actually free. Obviously, with any assignment system, I can then immediately set some due dates. This is when it will have to be done by, and it will be flagged as late if it's done after that. Now, the next box, add people, will pick up from your school's managed information system, your school register, and automatically pull in all of your students and all of your classes. This is a demo. This is a demo environment, so I'm just having to search for a couple of letters. Again, though, it will pull in my classes for me and list them. But there's nothing stopping me also then assigning this same lesson to other students in the school. And we have this happening a lot as well, where one member of the department will assign the geography homework to all of Year 7. And they can do this really quite easily. But then each individual teacher will mark the work for that class. And that's it. If I was only setting something really basic like this, I'm ready to go. I can complete this and I can click the assign button. Having done so, lots of things happen. It sends a message to the students to let them know that they've got homework. It puts it into the students' assignment calendar. It sends that same message to their parents and puts it into their assignment calendar so the parents can see too. It puts it into an assignment list. And if they have the free MyFrog app installed, which is available for both Apple and Android devices, it also sends them a push notification directly to their phones. So there's no way the child can claim, oh, they didn't know they had homework set. They definitely will. And this is where the power of one place to go to get all your homework really comes into play. I mentioned, though, that I might want to do more than just set some basic homework with some simple instructions. And if I click on Next, I can look at different ways I can collect in this work. So I could collect in their text just as a simple paragraph answer, or I could collect in files from them. And these files can be whatever file types you have, whether they're Office documents or photos or images, or even music composition files and so on. We can collect in basic computer code as well. So again, for ICT lessons, we've got that. And probably the biggest feature of Frog Home Learning is the quiz system. We have a bank of something like 250,000 questions, all quizzes, all mapped against the curriculum, all age appropriate, all self-marking. So you could assign a quiz and Frog will return the results from the students. And it's such a big feature. I'm going to go into that in a little while during this demonstration where I can show you that in more detail. I'd said in my instructions, read chapter 4. But again, why am I telling them to read a textbook that I'm going to have to buy? Instead, why don't I get that text and push it out to the students as a PDF? Or maybe I'll give them a writing frame in a Word document or a diagram. Or, which has happened more and more since March, maybe instead I'll video myself talking through the contents of the lesson, or maybe not myself, maybe just recording my PowerPoint, producing a video file for my entire lesson and sending that to the students, either uploading it directly or linking to it from a site like YouTube. So I've got all sorts of flexibility here to deliver genuine home learning, not just task setting. Now, Frog is nothing if not flexible, and we know from our schools that they don't necessarily want to mark online. But if you do want to mark online, you can go into this setting and you can mark out of a number, out of a percentage. But if you're no good calculating percentages, you can mark out of a number. But by far the most popular option is the custom mark scheme. And in here, I've got two set up. I've got an effort grade system. So I'm not academically marking them here, but how much effort I've judged that they've put in, or a simple 3-tier medal scheme. But then lots of our schools have also been using GCSE marking systems and marking grades in here too. So they're actually marking the work as they would expect the students to do it academically. All of that's available, and as I say, just hit the assign button and it goes off into the student's area. So let me now switch over and show you what Frog Home Learning looks like from a student. Here we go. So again, a similar but different interface. I'm logged in now as a student called Victoria, and I can see just the messages from the student notice board. But I've also got videos that are appropriate for me as a child. So these talk you through how to use Frog, but at a child's level, and what the child needs to know rather than what the adult needs to know for setting the work.
Graham, can I just interrupt just slightly there? I think one of the important things that schools were asking us was a simple, consistent approach, something that was easy to implement across the school and roll out, and that matched all technical abilities. And I think the importance to explain here, I'm going to just reflect on the homeworking you did as well, but this area particularly here, the help and the support and the getting started guides with Frog, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that actually most of the schools, I think we've had what 40 or so schools have taken on home learning in the last couple of months, but actually most of them have engaged their staff just by using these simple guides.
That's right, yes. When we've been rolling it out, those schools have opted that we show some members of staff it in depth, but leave them to show their staff and leave them to choose how to roll out the different features to their teachers.
So whole school rollout is pretty easy and less burden on champions to get everybody going and motivated, because actually it's quite straightforward.
Yes, very much so.
One of the other points I wanted to just raise, we were talking about setting assignments, and I know the language says assignments, but there's nothing stopping the assignment function in home learning actually being the structure for the school day. So in other words, you've talked about setting homework and receiving homework and marking homework, but actually this could just be, if you're not in school, then this is the plan of the day and what you need to follow.
Yes, and schools have been describing this to us as a virtual timetable, and especially when students are having to share computers and can't get all online at 10 a.m. for the class Zoom call. Instead, that can be recorded and uploaded into one of these lesson links. And so as Victoria can see, today she's got to work through some design technology work, she's handed in her English work, and she's got some work on castles and rivers for history. Tomorrow, you can see she's got a full timetable, 5 different things, topics for her to work through. And then obviously Saturday, Sunday is off, but then she'll have more work set for next week.
And obviously the parent has exactly this as well.
Yes, so the parent's view is slightly different. Again, though, there's video guides and language around the parent, but they can see each child's assignment calendar and assignment list.
Perfect, thank you.
So there is the assignment calendar view too, and I mentioned just briefly there the assignment list. So while the assignment calendar shows everything that's happening on any individual day, This list is the comprehensive list of everything you've got to do, organized by due date. And in both cases, though, the child can go into it, and I'll pick one here. Let's go for this shop front lesson. Both cases, they open like this, and here's the instructions that the teacher's provided. They want them to upload a file. They've included some success criteria. You can see that there's one thing that they have to do. It's due tomorrow, and there's the big hand in button. But if Victoria is stuck, if Victoria doesn't really understand this, or maybe doesn't have the ability with an art package at home to work on this, she can contact her teacher directly through this messaging system. And send that. And that sends a message directly to her teacher, so that they can have a communication between the two of them, and she can get some coaching through whatever the problem is she's having. Now, before I go and show you what that work looks like when it's been handed back to the teacher, there's one other element of the student's login that I'd really like to demonstrate, which is what we call quiz revision. If I open it here. So this is the student's access to all of those quizzes that I was talking about before. So we have, Victoria is in key stage 3, but there are the other key stages down here. I've selected English, and as you can see, quite a few of them have video tutorials alongside that Victoria can watch independently. She can also go into any of these quizzes. Now, if she does, there's the next stage on that, and let me just click into one, is the frog play element. Now, frog play, when you're assigning a quiz, is something that you can choose to turn off. You can set it so that you don't get that. But if you do leave it on or allow the students to go into this view themselves, we've developed an engagement tool designed to encourage children to work through the quizzes independently and keep going, moving through those quizzes. In short, what happens is a student selects a quiz, they start to interact with that quiz, answering some questions, and then the quiz will pause and allow them to play one level of a game. And as you can see, there's a few games that have been unlocked, but there's an awful lot that are locked. And from that gamification of learning, students are encouraged to take part in more quizzes, which will earn them credits, which will allow them to pay for other games to be unlocked. So I've picked a quiz here, and I'm now going to pick one of the games I've already got. And we start. Now, it's all very well that I've got that game, but I can't play that until I've answered some questions. How well I do on those questions will give me some power-ups potentially in the game. So let's see. Look at the sentence, rearrange the words to make it passive. This blank was blank, blank, David. I'm going to guess this book was written by David. Let's see if I've got that right. Great, and now I've got more time to play. Now, just to demonstrate what happens if I do something badly, let's get this completely wrong and submit. So I've got a wrong answer. I'm presented with the option to retry it. I can actually see the answers displayed for me and what it should be, and then I can obviously skip on. So let's just do another one. We'll just submit that to get the wrong answer. Let's skip. And next. And you can see, so I've done some rearranging question types. We've got an awful lot of different question types in. And just to demonstrate that, I've got a slide I can bring up to show you. So I'm just going to skip back to the presentation. When assembling quizzes or when using any of the existing quizzes, there are multiple different question types. Obviously, there's multiple choice and there's true or false and all sorts like that. But we've got the match pairs. You've just seen me doing some fill in the blanks and highlighting words. I think the most powerful one in here, though, is find questions. So if I'm assembling my own quizzes, which you can do as well, you don't have to stick to that bank of what I think is 1.7 million questions when we last audited this. What I can do is I can assemble quizzes just by searching that bank of questions. Obviously, I can filter it and look for things that are just for English and so on. But I've got a huge amount of resources here to mean that I can very, very quickly create some exercises. So I'm just going to jump back to Victoria's quiz. As I say, I could keep going through this. Eventually, I'll get the opportunity to play one round of a game. And when I do, and it's a fun, simple game like you would expect to be able to download from the Apple iStore or something like that. But as I work through these, that comes up, and you can see how well I'm doing depends on that game. But I'm just going to close that down for now. And I'm going to switch back over to show you what the teacher sees. So back in as the teacher view, and I think seeing as we were just looking and focusing on quizzes, let me show you, not only will Frog mark that quiz for you and how well those students have done when it was in an assignment, but you can also get what we call a quiz report. And in this matrix overview, it lists all the students who had this work assigned to them from me, and it then shows me how well each child did against every question in the system. So I can see where they've failed and got it wrong, where they've skipped, where they've reattempted it. And by the way, when you set quizzes, you can choose whether or not to allow them to have a second go, whether or not you want the games on. You can put time limits on, and you can use spaced repetition to reassign the same. So there's an awful lot of features in there, and more than happy in the questions later on to go into that in more depth with you. But I can see here that from question 6, quite a few students have skipped it. Quite a few have got it wrong, and there's been some failed reattempts and so on. Now, if this was the live version, I'd click on it and I could actually view that question for you. I just had to take a screenshot from one of our schools and anonymize the names. But hopefully that gives you that sense of what's possible. And obviously, everything is downloaded. But let me jump back and show you what another piece of work looks like there, where I would end up doing the marking. So here I am back in the teacher area, and I can go to the Markbook tab, and these are all the homeworks that I've set. As you can see, I've got a couple that are overdue, and I'm waiting for the students to hand in that work. But let me click on this, which is probably as powerful, is arguably as powerful a tool as the self-marking quizzes, but goes further. It's a tool that we call feedback. And remember earlier I said that you could use a file drop and allow the students to hand in work via Word documents or by pictures and that sort of thing. Well, with feedback, it actually converts those documents into something that I can then annotate and mark online. So in this example, Troy handed in a diagram of the local area of Halifax and what the tube map for that area would look like. And I've already started marking, and I've added some stickers, but it's a drag and drop tool, so I can just put something in here. But if I don't want to spend all my time typing as I'm doing there, note the microphone. I can actually leave audio feedback on Troy's work here. And there's nothing stopping me as well going in and selecting one of these markers. And because it's a tube map, this shouldn't be like this. It should be more like that. And I can leave notes along those lines. And I can return this to Troy for him to do, but I'm annotating it all online. I'm not having to collect in work physically. I can mark it digitally. Which brings me to another wonderful use of feedback that never occurred to us, and it was one of our schools showed us. If I just close this down, and that is marking physical work electronically or digitally. This was a case of Mayflower School set their students in their assignment, they would take a photo of their written work from their workbook, or in this case, their piece of paper, and then the teacher would come in and start highlighting and marking. And again, you see, I can sort of draw on the screen, and I can also, oops, let me grab that. Try that again.
Hi, Graham. I think it's the feedback feature has been something that has gone down incredibly well with Frog Schools and has done for years, but particularly this year, for the last couple of months, we introduced this into home learning because it's gone down so well with schools. One of our recent schools previously said they had 14 different ways of feeding back to parents, so 14 different methods. That's to students, so that's quite difficult to understand for students and parents. But not only that, when they reached out to the teachers and launched feedback, they actually started just with stickers. So with feedback, you can start with the most basic of uses in here, so maybe what worked well, or even better if, going through to things like you're doing and marking, and then going on to even doing things like putting audio onto work. But the nice thing is that students can still fill in their exercise books if they want to. They can still take a photograph and upload that into the Frog platform. You as a teacher can simply drag a sticker on and annotate, or you could simply mark it as you are here and get that back to the student without ever having to touch an exercise book. And it's been actually quite a significant thing to be able to mark without actually physically receiving anything paper. We have a couple of schools that are quarantining work, so they'll receive work in from the student, they'll put it in a drawer for 2 days. 2 days later they'll pull it out of the drawer and mark it, then the teacher will put it back in the drawer and then wait another 2 days and then give it back to students. Now, I know that happens in the UK, and I also know that some of the countries that we're working with across the globe have stopped all paper-based work. And I think this is a great way of actually still allowing the student the ability to use their exercise books, to write in them in their own handwriting, to make sure things are still grammatically correct, but then upload those into a platform.
Absolutely, I couldn't have said it better myself, Lucy. So that's feedback, and as Lucy was just describing there, and from our schools, we know that this has become a really powerful tool, so much so that teachers are saying they're going to continue using it when all lockdowns and all restrictions are completely lifted. They find it a much easier way of storing that information, of storing that marking, rather than it being in the back of student exercise books and so on. Now, this was my assignment list. This is all the classes and all the work I've set. But what I can also do is, if I switch to the Markbook tab, I can have a Markbook for each of my classes, which will list all the homework that I have set for them. Again, because it's connected to your school's register, it pulls in all of the students for that class. And if a child moves during the school year from one class to another, they and their work will come with them and appear within here. So this is a Markbook I've set up. I've got 3 bits of homework set, and I've also set my target grades. I've based the Markbook on that medals mark scheme because it's just my way of keeping track on how well the students are working and if they're working at the level I think they should. But it does a lot more than that, because I can go in here and any marks I set will then color code themselves against the target I've set. By the way, this being Frog, it's incredibly flexible. You can choose not only the different levels, but also the different colors that you have here. So you can see that Stuart is handed in one piece of work and it's been marked it's gold and it's green because that's what he's expected. But Victoria here, I think she's bronze level, and actually she's performing higher than that. So I just get a very quick sense. But it does more again, because I can see that while Stuart did indeed get gold on his first piece of homework, he hasn't actually opened his next 2 pieces of homework. Whereas Amy, who has handed in and did very well on her first piece, hasn't handed anything in, but has at least opened both of them. Alicia here I've had to return the work to her, so she's going to reattempt that. And I can see Troy has sent me a comment, and this is where Troy's comment comes in. And I must have included a video in here. Now, this Markbook then has all sorts of extra features within the assignment area. If I'm collecting the work in physically, if all my students are in class and actually I want to record hand-ins, but I'm not worried about the students having to go in to hand in some work, so I'm collecting their workbooks in, I've got the ability to mark all as handed in, and I can preview it so I can display it on the whiteboard, and I can change time instructions and dates and so on. But the most useful tool in here, and this again came directly from our schools, was reuse assignment. This is a homework that I have set to my class, but I could use this button to assign it to any other class in the school. So from a teacher sharing, a teacher collaboration point of view, I've got that down. Now, my Markbooks are open. So if I'm sick or I'm attending a webinar or for whatever reason, I need another colleague to go in and collect in the work and mark the work for me, then I can have that colleague go into my Markbook and they can interact with my students. They'll be named if they reply to any messages, but it'll be as if they are me. And again, if I'm telling a colleague, if I'm saying to Lucy, you should check out the last homework I got from the kids. It was really great. You should use it. Lucy can say to me, can you assign it to my class? Or Lucy can go into that, reuse assignment, and set it to her own class there. So it's great from a collaboration point of view. So there's a couple of other things, if you don't mind bearing with me. I'd like to show you the quizzes from a teacher's point of view. And here within the quiz section, we've got all of the frog play quizzes. These are quizzes we've commissioned from educators over the years. Then we've also got the community quizzes. And these quizzes have been submitted by schools building their own quizzes and sharing them. Anytime you see a quiz that you like, you could go straight into assigning it straight to your class. But just as importantly, you've got duplicate quizzes, because it might well be that you see a quiz and you can view the questions and go into it, but go, nah, it's not quite right for my students. Well, instead of recreating a brand new or creating a brand new quiz, you could duplicate this quiz into your own area, edit it, and use that and assign that out. It's really a huge time saver. Obviously, at the top, as you would expect, I can search for the keywords and anything, and this is, I've put in the word comma, and these are all the different quizzes available. And when I find one that I like, I can go straight to assign, and that opens up that same quick assign wizard that we saw earlier. And you can also see the videos. Now, remember I showed you as a student how they could see those videos? Well, working our way through all of the quizzes, and right now we've pretty much got down all of English and maths across the year groups, and I think we'll be looking at other subjects too soon. But if I see a video here, this is a full tutorial. This is a 10-minute lesson that the children can work through and then go on to do the quiz. So if you see a video here, there is a companion quiz available. And when you assign that quiz, that video is tagged in as part of it. But that's the setting work and marking work side. There's also the communication side. So we've got, back on here, we've got the notice boards for parents and staff and students. But maybe I want to communicate with them and ensure that those messages are getting through. Well, we've also got the messages system. You see, if everybody installs the MyFrog app on their phone, or when everybody in your school community installs the MyFrog app on their phone, it allows you to send free messages as push notifications directly to their phones. And it's a very simple process. I click new message, I give it a title, give it some instructions, and then I get to choose who I'm sending this to. So I might just decide that I need to contact all of year 7. So I've got a really important message for all of year 7, and maybe it's an assembly that's going to be online. Maybe it's going to be my class, and I'm wanting to send them a Zoom link straight to that. I can do that here. Or maybe it's not for the children themselves, Maybe it's for the children and their parents, and I want to make sure that message gets across. Or maybe I don't need to let the children know at all. Maybe this is just about letting the parents know. So I can do that. And again, because it pulls in from your managed information system, I can actually contact the teachers of the children of year 7 too. And clicking send sends that message instantaneously. Now, because we're sending them a message that is read either in the MyFrog app or on the desktop, we can then tell you who's opened that message and read it. So in this top example, I've got important message, and I sent it to the the class that I've been demonstrating, 8A DEM, and I can see from here that 12 out of 17 students have read that message. And I click on it and I can see which of those students that's the case for. Some of them have read it via the app, and some of them have read it via their desktop. And the last thing I'll do is I'll show you what that looks like from a student or parent's point of view. But I've got all that information. So great. I've got quite a good hit rate there, but there's still some children haven't been informed. Well, I can download that as a spreadsheet, give it to the school office and say, please, can you get in touch with them? Please, can you phone these parents or these children to let them know? So I've got that audit information. And like I say, what that looks like from a student's point of view, if I jump over, is we've got these two lozenges, these two buttons at the top. This is my inbox. So if a child doesn't have a smartphone, it doesn't matter, because Frog collapses down onto any mobile device or any screen size. So if they've got an Amazon Kindle Fire tablet, they can still access the desktop version online and they can still consume their messages. So here I can see the different messages waiting for me to read. And if I go into here as Victoria, I can see all of the homework that she's got. And both of these views are reproduced inside the app as well.
So Graham, you're talking about different ways of communicating with parents and with students through both the notice boards and through push notifications. That said, there are options, as with the quizzes, the ability to switch on and off the gamification or limit time on quizzes, for example. The same applies with messages. So you could have the notice boards, for example, but you may already have your own messaging system. So you may not want to use the Frog messages. There's always options with everything that we offer as part of Frog.
Absolutely. And this is what we do. We'd sit down with you and we'd work out during what we call the implementation phase, what bits you want to use. And from there, we tailor everything in Frog Home Learning for you, those needs.
Thanks, Graham.
And there's so much more I could cover, and there's so much that I've only just skimmed the surface of. But ultimately, and if I get back to my presentation, I think we've covered everything other than to mention or re-mention the MyFrog application. It is free for students and parents and teachers to download. They do get those alerts when homeworks are set. And that messaging tool, again, it was asked for by our schools and built to what they needed it to do. It's a great way of cheaply, freely communicating with parents and students.
Basically, what I'd like to say to you all is thank you very much today for joining us. And I'd like to just summarize, if I may, the system that we've put in place today is really about addressing the needs that students have, and that's the ability to address their work and complete it, whether that's in the classroom or at home, to access the homework on any device in a really simple way. What we have found is the more choice that you give students, the more confused they are and the less likely they are to complete the work. So it's all about simple instructions, not too much choice, a simple way of finding homeworks, the ability to view their marks and their feedback all in one place, and obviously the ability to independently learn, so learning outside of the classroom. For parents, the big question has always been, how is my child doing? So for this, about a simple home learning timetable to follow, to give them a little bit of support for their own well-being, to follow their child's learning journey, to see that rich feedback, and to see those gaps in attainment, and maybe they can help and be involved in that. The communication with school, especially at the moment, is absolutely paramount, and also to be able to view information through a safe and secure format, so a nice, safe and secure mobile application that is locked down through the username and password, etc. For teachers, as I said earlier, it's about addressing all technical abilities across the school. So something that's simple, something that's uniform, and something that is obviously expandable. So it's about a uniform way of doing it, for teachers to be able to identify and act on those attainment gaps, and Graham has shown you that through the Markbooks. There's also ways for senior leaders as well to be able to pull out information to see how teachers are actually using the system as well. So to see if there's any support we need to give them and make sure that everything's happening as it should be. But for teachers also the ability to mark work, if they want to be able to feedback work and to engage and share evidence with the class, whether they be at home or in school. So really what the advice that we'd like to give you now is we have a website, www.frogeducation.com/HomeLearning. So there's a home learning section we've put together for you, which will give you some more information, a bit of a walkthrough, some more user journeys, some links off to the wider Frog suite if you wanted to see some other things. As I said, we're going to stay online. We're going to mute ourselves and just be here on the chat. But if you'd like to see more and you don't want to ask us here because you're a little bit shy, just drop us a line at hello@frogeducation.com and we'd love to talk to you. So for now, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time out of the school day or even staying on beyond the end of the school day to join us here. And we are going to now mute ourselves and thank you very much.